All right, there we go. That's better. Okay, so I am going to pass out this packet of materials, okay? We are moving on. Now we have skipped a little bit of time. We ended World War II, and now we are going to start talking about civil rights. Because, as you can see on the board, seniors only have 27 more days.
Hallelujah.
Only have not very much more than that, okay? But you guys have 4 more days, 5 more days than they do? Something like that?
That's good.
Can't remember. So we're going to be moving on, okay? Now, you guys may have to really help Katarina and Ben, okay, on some of this. Because we've talked about this a lot in your history classes. We've talked about some of these things, okay? All right, some of the pictures that you see up here on the board, all right? What do you see?
Segregation.
Okay,
Kids.
segregation. What are the
Blacks
people?
and whites.
Okay. What about the people in this picture?
Protesting.
Okay. Do they look happy? No, they do
Can't
not.
really see.
All right. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is this Brown versus Board of Education decision. Now, some of you may know, why do we in particular in Hoxie, Kansas, care about this case?
Had to do with the Board of Education
Where?
in Kansas.
In Kansas. This case started in Topeka, Kansas, okay? So it's kind of special to us, all right? You can go to Topeka. They have the historical site there, the museum. You can go, you can tour it, and learn all about it, okay? All right, so big question we are going to be looking at today is how this particular case, Brown versus Board of Education, changed America, okay? All right, so this first paper, it says our aim. How did Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court case impact our society? Okay, why now all of these years later do we care? Okay, what is this? How does this impact us? All right, so what you're going to do first is you're going to look at these pictures. Okay, it says based on your knowledge of history and looking at the images below, write 3 claims that are arguable statements, okay? So a claim saying, like most conspiracy theories, they're making a claim. I believe that 9/11 was an inside job, okay? You've made your claim. Now you've got to use evidence and reasoning, what you already know, and evidence from things that you, from documents and things that you found to back up that claim, okay? So you're making a statement. This is what I believe, or this is what is. Okay? So that is what you are going to do. Looking at these pictures, and based off of the things you already know about civil rights and segregation during this time period, okay, you're going to make 3 claims. 1 about Jim Crow laws, 2 about schools, and 3 about society. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so start that right now.
So should they have like
Just whatever. What do you think about Jim Crow laws? Jim Crow laws were what? Okay, and
I don't ever remember that. Those are the ones that were.
About
they had the segregation laws so that like they couldn't drink from the same water fountain.
exactly.
They used the same
So,
fountain.
all right. So for Katarina and Ben, okay, they are not from the United States. They haven't learned this for every year for the past several years, right? Okay. So look at that first picture. There are two water fountains. One is labeled white, one is labeled colored. Okay? So Jim Crow laws basically said we've got these separate things. Okay? We cannot cross that line. They can't share.
Didn't they also say though that like it was supposed to be like the same, like, I can't think of the word. Like they're supposed to be, equally, like same quality,
Yep.
yeah, I can think of the word.
Yep. Good
But
job,
they didn't
Arnett.
actually do that.
Separate but equal.
Good job. So we read a statement, but we
Uh-huh.
think it.
Yep. Like just what do you know about Jim Crow laws? Okay? Write what you do know. Jim Crow laws were unfair. Okay? Why? Okay?
What's it mean?
Jim Crow laws were good because they allowed things to be equal, even though they were separate. So you're making a claim, okay? Schools, look at the pictures. Look at the boys in the bottom middle picture. How did they feel about schooling at this time? Okay? They didn't like it. We won't go.
So how do you break that?
What do you think? What is
They
your
weren't
claim?
fair.
What is your claim about this?
School wasn't
Oh, so
fair.
like basically putting our opinion about what we think of the picture.
Right, okay. Just, this isn't right or wrong. Okay, this isn't right or wrong, guys. This is just your ideas. Because if I say, I make my claim that 9/11 was an inside job, then at the bottom, there's a counterclaim. So somebody's going to tell me, no, it was not. Here's the reasons why. Okay? So possible counterclaims to you saying that, say your claim is that Jim Crow laws were actually good because they allowed things to be separate but equal. Okay, then what is a possible counterclaim for that? Jim Crow laws were not good because while they were separate, they were not equal. Okay? Just your thoughts.
We need to do three
Just
counterclaims.
getting your thoughts on paper.
We need to do three counterclaims.
Just one for Jim Crow, one for schools, and one for society. Just pick one, a possible counterclaim to one of your claims.
What's the society one on here? The middle top?
Yes. That picture's very scary.
Looks like a dog.
It is a German Shepherd attacking. Very scary. And we just got done talking about World War II, right? Okay. What role did African Americans play in the United States during World War II? Okay, they fought. They enlisted and fought for their country. Many of them lost their lives. Okay, how about on the home front?
They help.
They worked, right? They filled those jobs that were being vacated by the soldiers that were going to fight. Okay? But then as soon as the war got over, bam, things were back to the way they were. And this picture here, they're holding a sign that says, I am a man. Okay, I am a man, so treat me like one. I might have gone and fought for my country, and I come back, and I have to drink out of a different water fountain because of my color. Okay? All right. So, keep these claims in mind, and we're going to see if you change or adapt your claim any throughout the lesson today, okay? All right, I'm going to start reading this, all right? So, this is kind of paving the way to this Supreme Court case. Girls, shh. All right, slavery was approximately from 1619 to 1865. After slavery, after 1865, when slavery was abolished, we had black codes from 1865 to around 1890. After that, then these Jim Crow laws were established. So here is a sample of some Jim Crow laws. On buses, all passenger stations in this state operated by any motor transportation company shall have separate waiting rooms or space and separate ticket windows for the white and colored races. That was from Alabama. So you can't even go up to the same window to buy a ticket to ride a bus where you're going to be separated on the bus as well. Restaurants. All persons licensed to conduct a restaurant shall serve either white people exclusively or colored people exclusively, and shall not sell to the two races within the same room or serve the two races anywhere under the same license. So if you have a license to operate a restaurant, that license is either good for serving white people or serving black people, not both. And definitely not under the same roof. Okay, separate. Education. The schools for white children and the schools for Negro children shall be conducted separately. That was from Florida. So no schools, gotta be separate, okay? Intermarriage. It shall be unlawful for a white person to marry anyone except a white person. Any marriage in violation of this shall be void. That's from Georgia. Burial, even cemeteries. You're not even equal in death, okay? The officer in charge shall not bury or allow to be buried any colored persons upon grounds set apart or used for the burial of white persons. Textbooks. Books shall not be interchangeable between the white and colored schools, but shall continue to be used by the race that first used them. From North Carolina. So, if you've got books and say your school bought a new curriculum, we're getting ready to get a new social studies curriculum for next year. So we're going to have all new books, all new textbooks, and all new curriculum, okay? Well, what do we do with those books? Okay? Throw them away? Could we send them to another school that might need them, that might not be able to afford a new curriculum? That would be great, right? But in this time, if a white school bought a new curriculum, they could not send those books to a black school. Can't do that. They'd just throw them away. All right, baseball games. This one blows my mind. It shall be unlawful for any amateur white baseball team to play baseball in any vacant lot or baseball diamond within 2 blocks of a playground devoted to the Negro race. And it shall be unlawful for any amateur colored baseball team to play baseball in any vacant lot or baseball diamond within 2 blocks of any playground devoted to the white race. So make sure that you don't play baseball in a vacant lot that's within proximity to the opposite race. It's unlawful. Okay? All right, lanes it up. Slavery in America started in 1619 when 20 Africans, who were referred to as black gold, were brought to Jamestown, Virginia by a Dutch ship. For the next 250 years, colonies and states used slave labor as the foundation of their agricultural-based economy, which was fueled predominantly by tobacco and king cotton. Now, yesterday, with my sophomores, we were talking about the Industrial Revolution, and we were talking about the cotton gin. Before the cotton gin was invented, slavery was on the decline. In fact, a lot of slave owners were releasing their slaves. They were freeing their slaves because they didn't have a need for them. Okay? The amount of cotton that they would pick in a day took them 3 weeks to pull the seeds from. Okay? So there was a limited number of people who could work on that farm and be productive. The cotton gin changed all that. It was able to pull those seeds out of that cotton super fast and super easy. And so these big plantations wanted to produce more cotton, and so slavery came back into popularity and continued. Okay, so the cotton gin really kind of changed things there. But they called it king cotton, okay, a southern crop. Although the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation made attempts to end legalized slavery, whites simply found alternative new ways, means, and laws to oppress the black population in America, such as the Black Codes. Okay, we hear about Jim Crow laws a lot, right? We've heard about those, we've talked about those. but we don't hear about these black codes very often. They were restrictive laws designed to limit the freedom of African Americans and ensure their availability as a cheap labor force after slavery was abolished. So slavery is no longer legal, but we're going to kind of circumvent that, and we're going to create these codes that are widely accepted by everyone to continue to oppress this race, okay? As former slaves tried to establish themselves as freed men and gain economic independence during the earliest years of the Reconstruction, white landowners acted to control the labor force through a system similar to the one that had existed during slavery. So after then the black codes, we have the Jim Crow laws. State and local laws. So these were passed laws, okay, that enforced racial segregation. Enacted after Reconstruction, Jim Crow or segregation laws effectively divided the American South into black and white in almost every aspect of public life. You want to go to the bowling alley? Okay, there's a black one and a white one. You want to go to the theater? There's a black one and a white one. We already know restaurants, black or white, okay? And we saw in the picture earlier, the drinking fountain, black or white. So these Jim Crow laws made it legal, okay? These laws mandated racial segregation in all public facilities in states of the former Confederacy, okay, starting in 1890. They were affirmed with the Supreme Court case, Plessy versus Ferguson, which, like Cody mentioned, okay, separate but equal, okay? So that continued until Brown versus Board of Education, which was in what year? 1954. Okay, so 1890 is when they said separate but equal, and that continued until 1954. All right, so you have 3 questions there on your paper. Take a minute or 2 and answer those 3 questions based off of what we just read.
What's a collated mean? Or
That's what?
allocated? Is that how the school?
Allocated.
Where did it say, did it say that stuff in what we just read?
It's on our textbook.
Yep, look at your Jim Crow laws. So how were schools and school supplies allocated? How were the races supposed to be served in a restaurant? And what was the overall goal of these Jim Crow laws? Okay, once you get those questions answered, turn to a neighbor and share your answer and see how theirs compares to yours.
I see it.
Add something to your answer if need be.
I was looking to make sure you actually.
Not be in the same
But I got it.
separate. Okay, all done.
Yeah, I put in the big one.
What? Give me a shirt.
Go for it.
Okay, so what did you get, Cal?
Not right now. You should be working.
And then currently have a license and the overall budget.
They call in sick. So did that.
Yeah.
Come on, Vicky.
Addie, you're just sleeping really strong. Addie. Oh, Addie.
They're gonna tell you, there's a story there of stuff. She is like that there. On that subject, but I can't remember. I have to look that up. Crazy, isn't it?
Like, it's like, what if the white person likes a black person? That's so bad.
It is in this time. All right. Okay, have you talked with your neighbor? Okay, did they have something similar to you? Yes? No? Did you add some things to yours?
No.
Okay. All right. For this next part, okay, I'm going to read through and we're going to really talk about Brown versus Board of Education. While I'm reading, I want you to highlight or underline the things that you think are important in those sections, all right? You need to practice this, okay? Pull out the information from that paragraph that you think is the most important, the VIP of that paragraph, okay? All right. Now don't underline everything, just the most important, okay? As I read
Paragraph?
All right. In the late 1800s, the United States Supreme Court ruled that separate facilities for black and white people were legal as long as the facilities were of equal quality. This was called separate but equal in the 1896 Supreme Court case Plessy versus Ferguson. However, many Americans believe that this decision was unfair because it violated the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states that all people, regardless of color, have a right to equal protection under the law. By the early 1950s, racial segregation separated black and white people in all aspects of public life, and black and white children were still not allowed to go to school together. Due to this fact that many black schools were underfunded, unkempt, and subpar, this inequality prompted some individuals and families to sue their local school districts because they felt that their school systems were separate and unequal. One such family was the Brown family from Topeka, Kansas. So separate but equal is the law, okay? But if a school is underfunded and it's in a building that's falling apart and you've got textbooks that you may not even have one textbook per student, okay? We kind of know what that's like, right? With our old textbooks. It's going to be nice next year because you guys are going to have new textbooks for your classes. So it's going to be nice. We're going to have nice, new, up-to-date materials. Okay, so you're getting the best that you can possibly get. If you've got materials that aren't the best, okay, our textbooks are old. The links in them sometimes don't work. Most of the time they don't work. Okay, and so it's not the best of the best. All right, and so these students, these black students, they weren't getting an equal education. Okay? Each day, Oliver Brown's daughter, Linda, who was a third grader, had to walk 7 blocks and through a dangerous railroad switchyard to get to the bus stop to catch a ride to the Monroe School, which was an all-black elementary school that was more than 21 blocks from her house. There was a school closer to her house, but it was designated for white students only. Linda Brown and her family believed that the segregated school system violated the 14th Amendment, and they took their case to court. Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka was a class action lawsuit, which meant that numerous cases of people with the same or similar injuries were suing together under the name Brown versus Board of Education. So if you hear, maybe on TV you see it, maybe it pops up when you're on social media, this class action lawsuit, okay? Join in. Did you take, Tylenol from this time to this time? If you did, you could be eligible to be a part of this class action lawsuit. Okay, now you know what that means. All right, numerous cases of people with same or similar injuries suing together under one case name. Okay. All right, so Thurgood Marshall, an up-and-coming young African-American attorney, argued that the case posed the following, he posed this question to the court. Does the segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race deprive minority children of the equal protection of the laws guaranteed by the 14th Amendment? That's his big question. Does this do this? Okay? You either have to say yes it does or no it doesn't. Okay? There is no gray area. All right? There is a yes or no answer. Does the segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race deprive minority children of equal protection under the law? The Federal District Court decided that segregation in public education was harmful to black children. But because all black schools and all white schools had similar buildings, similar transportation, lessons, teachers, they decided that the segregation was legal. So the state of Kansas, their court said this is legal. The buildings are similar, transportation's similar, so we're good. It is separate but equal. Okay? The Browns were not happy with that decision, so they appealed. They appealed their case to the Supreme Court of the United States, stating that even if the facilities were similar, segregated schools could never be equal to one another. The court decided that state laws requiring separate but equal schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. On May 17th of 1954, the Supreme Court handed down its unanimous ruling that banned racial segregation and declared separate but equal unconstitutional. The Browns won. Chief Justice Earl Warren stated, "We conclude that the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal." The Brown decision called for school desegregation to happen with all deliberate speed. So, the Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional. We need to desegregate schools as quickly as we possibly can. Not everyone readily accepted this decision. In fact, many pro-segregationists organized protests, violently blocked school entrances, and closed down schools entirely rather than desegregate them. Therefore, integration did not happen overnight. Instead, it took many years for America's schools to become fully inclusive and equal. Okay. Now, looking at some of these pictures, why do you think it took many years for this desegregation to happen when the court said it needed to happen at a deliberate speed?
Because like the white people, they just gotten so used to it, and they're like, nah.
Okay,
Society
society had accepted it, yep. Years and years, generations and generations with this mindset. Okay, it's not gonna happen like that, right? It is hard for us to change, isn't it? Okay, if our school board decided that we had to start wearing school uniforms, Okay,
Heck no.
I can be wearing that.
how would you feel about that?
Sheriff probably will next year.
How would you feel about that?
That.
Bad? Why? Why don't you wanna,
But that's stupid, that's pointless.
you wouldn't have to think about what you wore every day.
Okay, but we're not a private school.
We aren't. Okay? Are you used to wearing your comfy clothes to school?
That'd make me more of a person.
It's pretty nice to sit in your sweats and your sweatshirt, right? You're comfortable, you're ready to learn, okay? If you're in a button-up shirt and yeah, khaki pants and everything else, okay? So you would kind of resist against that change. This is what you know, this is what you're used to. Same for these people, right? This is what they know, this is what they're used to, and change is hard. Change is super hard for us. All right, so down at the bottom of that paper, you've got key players. You've got the key players in this case. Who is Linda Brown?
Student.
Third grader, the daughter of Albert Brown.
She is the third grader. She is the student that this case was revolving around, okay? 21 blocks she had to travel just to go to school. Now, for us, that's nothing, right? As Western Kansas people, we're used to driving. We want to go to Walmart, we're going to have to drive. Okay, we don't have the conveniences that they have. This is the closest school to some of you. Some of you guys, it's not. You choose to drive here, right? But some of you have to drive many, many miles just to get here, right, Gabby? Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of used to that, but if there's a school around the corner, why should we have to travel 21 blocks when there's one right next door? Okay. All right. Who is Thurgood Marshall?
The attorney.
Okay, the attorney. And what did he say?
He said that the
Does the
question.
segregation of children in public schools solely
Okay.
on the basis of race deprive the minority children of the equal protection of the laws guaranteed by the 14th Amendment?
Yep. He posed that question, yes or no. Does this violate the 14th Amendment? Yes or no. That's the
Yes.
decision that the court had to make. All right, who is Oliver Brown?
Father of Linda Brown.
Linda's,
Okay,
Linda's father.
the father. Now, you guys are not parents yet, but you would pretty much, as a parent, you pretty much do whatever you possibly can do for your children. Okay, hopefully one day you will realize that, okay? And so, or maybe you've seen your parents fight for you, for what's right for you, for what's best for you, okay? So Oliver Brown took on this case. I mean, he wanted to fight for what was right for his daughter. Okay, do you think that when he first started this, he had the intention of changing the United States as a whole? Probably not. Starting low, right? He just wanted his daughter to not have to cross this dangerous railroad interchange just to get to school, and there was one close by. All right, and who is Earl Warren?
The Supreme Court.
Okay, so he was the Chief Justice. Okay, so kind of the big guy in charge there in the Supreme Court, right? Okay, all right. On the back of that, you have several questions. I want you to partner up with a partner or a group of 3, that's fine too, okay? And answer these questions together. All right, go. Join me in with this.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like it to be yes. You guys are juniors, you should be able to write complete sentences and answer these questions. Remember, you restate the question in your answer. So number 1, What Supreme Court case set the precedent for the doctrine of separate but equal? This Supreme Court case set the precedent for the separate but equal. Okay? So don't just write that. Write a complete sentence. Get in the habit of doing that.
It's violated the
underfunded.
They didn't get it, that just
So was the education that they were getting the same as the white kids?
We have to write the entire question, or can we just?
Nick asked a good question, okay? For some of those longer questions, you don't have to restate the entire question, but make sure that your answer includes that main idea of that, okay?
shall abridge shall take away shall retract. That's the track is used.
that is, see
The track.
Go against the law.
Okay,
Retract.
the definition for a bridge is up on the board. Okay, now, I don't know if you've heard it in Miss Cheney's English class. Okay, an abridged version of a book is a shortened version of a book. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the second one, to curtail a right or a privilege. All right, even the right to free speech can be abridged. Okay, even that can be stopped, prevented, curtailed, it can be cut short.
It's a lot easier to just take one paper and write it down, law, and then.
Yes. You are right. Yes.
Present.
To like, to go against.
According to the Supreme Court.
But in this case, you're asking.
What's the United States administration make or enforcement action shall abridge the criminal commonly stated property or property affected
Are we finishing this?
Yep, yeah, we gotta get moving. Okay. For time's sake, we gotta get moving, all right? Is everybody almost done? No. Okay, I'll give you a couple more minutes.
Oh, shoot, that's the federal. That is Supreme Court. So the federal.
I'll probably run
What did Kansas say? Did they decide that it was separate but equal was legal?
So, paragraph 5, federal district court decided that segregation was harmful to the children, but it was legal.
Because things were similar. Busing was similar, buildings were similar. The court in Kansas said separate but equal is legal. All right, let's discuss, okay? What Supreme Court case set the precedent for the doctrine of separate but equal? Plessy versus Ferguson, okay? Why were African Americans dissatisfied with the status quo of the educational system, the status quo, the way it's being done?
Because they believe
Okay.
There wasn't equal.
Many of the black schools were underfunded, uncamped, and so far.
Okay, so it was violating that 14th Amendment. It was separate but not equal because they were underfunded and unkempt. Textbooks were bad. They might not have enough textbooks for every student. Okay, it was not an equal education that was being offered. Now, that can have an effect. Because if you are not getting the same level of quality of education, okay, then you're not going to get as good a job, okay? You're maybe not going to be able to go to college, okay? So that kind of had some repercussions after that, okay? All right? The 14th Amendment states, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. What does the term abridged mean?
Correct.
Okay, so an abridged version of a book is a shortened version, okay? In the same mindset of that, it says a law is to abridge a law is to curtail it, okay? To stop it, to shorten it. All right, so it's the same kind of thing. And an abridged book is a shortened version of that, okay? The African Americans of the time had the same laws, but different. They were not the same, okay? All right, how did the Federal District Court for the District of Kansas rule?
It was wrongful, so it was
Against the
legal.
Browns.
Okay, it was legal, they said, because there was similar transportation, similar busing, similar buildings, similar teachers, lessons, everything was similar. It was separate but equal. So they ruled that it was legal, okay? According to the text, the Browns appealed their case. What does the term appeal mean? All right, so if you wanted to wear a crop top to school, okay, and you came to me and you said, Ms. Ziegler, can I wear this crop top in your classroom? And I said, no, that violates the dress code. You cannot wear a crop top. You can't wear anything that shows your stomach. Okay, for you to appeal that decision that I made, you would go to Ms. Foes and you would say, Ms. Foes, can I wear this crop top? And she might say, no, that violates the dress code. You cannot wear a crop top to school. Okay? Where would you go next? To Miss Werner, the superintendent. Okay? So you're going to continue to ask that higher power. Okay? And that is what the Browns did. They continued up until they reached the highest court in the nation. According to the Supreme Court, the doctrine was separate but equal. Was it constitutional or unconstitutional?
Unconstitutional.
They ruled it unconstitutional. Why was a unanimous opinion important in this case?
Yeah, like another perspective.
What does that say when you have a unanimous decision?
That it's
Everybody agrees, okay? And every single Supreme Court justice agreed that this was unconstitutional. Very, very important. That was a very big signal to everyone.
Wait, it was unconstitutional, why?
That they ruled it unconstitutional, but why was the unanimous decision? Because everyone agreed. All of those Supreme Court justices agreed. Okay? Why did the Supreme Court's decision overrule the federal court's decision? Higher power. The Brown decision called for school desegregation to happen with all deliberate speed. How quickly do you think they desegregated?
not there.
Not very at all.
Not very, because why? Change is hard. All right, last paper, and then because the bell's gonna ring. All right, this is your homework. Wait. This is your homework. It says based on the text. This text, this one right here, this paragraph. Stop and wait. This paragraph that you read. Based on that, which one does it go with? The picture. And then you have a writing on the back. Follow the directions. All right, if you have questions, email me or come see me.